The following program is presented by the Metropolitan Library Service Agency.
Hello, welcome to All About Kids, a program focusing on the interests of children and young people and some of the issues affecting them. Our guest today, Kim Cardelli, is founder and director of the Children's Safety Center in St. Paul. She's here with the volunteer coordinator from the center, Mike LaDue, and we'll be talking with Kelly McKown from the Dakota County Technical College. The Children's Safety Center is a supervised visitation facility for children and their families.
Hi, welcome. I'm glad you could come today. Kim, could you tell us what the Children's Safety Center is?
The Children's Safety Center is a place for supervised visitation for children who have been neglected, abused, sexually abused, or where there is violence between the parents. We also do exchanges for divorced couples, and we try to help the families heal from the abuse that they've gone through parenting classes and support groups for the kids, and try to help them learn parenting skills so that when the court says you have unsupervised visitation, that child's safer.
Right, good idea. Good. How did you get started?
Well, it's a long story. It was from personal experiences. My oldest child was abused by his dad, and he was convicted of child abuse. And about a year after that period of time, I moved to the cities and from Cloquet up by Duluth, and was working, and I became homeless, lost for a place to live, and was mowing lawns 12 hours a day, and ended up at a battered women's shelter, not because I was battered, but because we were homeless. And while I was at the shelter, I talked to these women that were going through a lot of visitation problems, and I sat in their support groups, and I said, you know, what we really need is a place for exchanges to take place and a place for supervised visitation. Don't we have anything like that around here? And the women told me that they had never heard of such a place. And so I talked to the staff at this shelter, and I asked them if I could talk to some legislators. And one of the staff people knew a legislator, Kathleen Valanga, in St. Paul, and she said, sure, you know, well, I'll help you set it up. And we went and we talked to Kathleen Valanga, and I told her my ideas, and she says, this is something that's really needed. And while I was still staying at the shelter, she sent me a letter and said, you know, here's an application to apply for some funds. It's due in 2 weeks. Start yourself a visitation center. Well, I thought that was a neat idea, so I thought, I went to the staff and I said, can I do this? And they said, not in 2 weeks, but you know, why don't you, we'll give you some names of some heads of child abuse programs, and why don't you see if there's somebody out there that will do it. And so from the public phone at the shelter, I started calling. And at the end of 2 days, I had 35 names. They had given me 5, and I had 35 people who were interested, heads of child abuse programs in the Twin Cities area. And from there, I wrote down all my ideas, and I sent it to these people, and I invited them to an organizational informational meeting about visitation centers. And I got a free room at the Community Action Council out in Burnsville, and invited them out to come to this meeting. This was in August of 1990. And I had also, while I was at the shelter, when I had met with Kathy Valanga, she she had asked me to serve on some legislative committees, and so I had gotten to meet some of the state representatives, and so I invited them to this meeting. And one of the big newspapers did an article, and one of the TV stations came out to this meeting, and that's where it all kind of started. I was really just looking for somebody to do this. I didn't know that I was going to be doing it.
Surprise.
One of the women that I asked women from the shelter to come in and testify, and a woman who I had heard about, who had been in the paper, who had had her leg shut off, her name was Joni Kulsrud, and she came into this meeting and testified also. And they came up with the name Children's Safety Center just before that first meeting. They said, we have to call ourselves something. And one of the women gave me a list of things that she had come up with, and we just picked the name Children's Safety Centers, and it stuck. And from this meeting, we organized a statewide advisory committee. The TV station that had aired that night had gotten over 100 phone calls from all over the state of Minnesota. And so we decided, well, we started getting these letters, and we decided to do a statewide advisory committee. I had chaired that committee for about a year, and we had 65 heads of organizations and court systems people on that committee. And from there, we, after about 9 months, we decided to form a nonprofit organization, and we started looking into how to do that. We also, Kathleen Blanca asked us to come back and testify before the Family Law Task Force. This is in February of 1991. And she says, it's not for funding, we just want to know what you're doing. And so I gave, we gave a big, me and a couple of people from my committee gave a big speech, and I, at that time, I was pretty, I had big dreams, and I wanted a program that would go statewide, and I just said everything that I envisioned wanted to happen with these visitation centers or children's safety centers all over the state of Minnesota. And the next day she called and she says, we want to write a bill. Can you come down and help us write a bill? And so I went down, and the legislation was named after our corporation, the Children's Safety Centers legislation. And it was we were on the front page of the major newspaper in Minnesota. And it really started to sail, and even though we had all the publicity and everything, our bill got caught up in some bipartisan politics, and the bill died the first year. And some of the legislators said, Kim, it's not going to go through. There's no money. There's no way. Forget it. It's a good issue, but there's no way that you can do it. And I remember telling one of the senators, I said, well, what would you do if you thought that this could pass? What would you do? And she said, forget it, Kim. There's no way. Just forget it. And I said, well, what if I visited a senator a week? I mean, what if I visited senators, and what if I went to hearings and said, well, you can try anything you want? And that's what I did. I ended up visiting Alan Spear and Roger Mole, and Alan Spear was working on the crime bill at the time, and he said, let's put it in the crime bill, and that's what happened. And at the time I didn't know what, he says, let's put in this omnibus crime bill, and I said, I don't know what that means. And he says, he says, well, it's really good. And I said, well, I just need 5 authors on my bill. I just want to see it pass. I don't know what that means. And he goes, this is good. This will give it press coverage. This will shelter it. This will get it to pass. And so I said, I just trusted him, and it went into the crime bill. And from his office, I walked down the hall and went straight to Governor Carlson's office. And I said, can I meet with one of your aides? And I ended up meeting with Jeff Michelle at Governor Carlson's office. And he was like my inside person, and they were working on a crime commission. And he would let me know, each time the Crime Commission was going to meet, well, I had the statewide advisory committee, and I called everyone up on this advisory committee around the state, and I said, the Crime Commission is going to be around in all these different counties, and I said, get somebody over there to testify. Sure. Anybody, I don't care what they say about visitation problems, but just get somebody to say something. And I went and testified at a few of them, and other people locally that had worked closely with me and testified. And at the end of the Crime Commission report, there was 96 programs in the state recommended as crime problems, and Children's Safety Centers was the top third in the state.
Great.
And the head of the Crime Commission said, as we went around to each of these counties, there was somebody, a police officer, a sheriff, somebody who got up and testified about what a huge problem this was, visitation problems in the state of Minnesota. And so our bill that year got into 3 crime bills, and it passed. And in January of 1993, we opened our center with part of the funding from that bill. We're one of 5 pilots in the state. Our program's the Children's Safety Center, and each of their programs have their own name. They're run by other nonprofits. But it was great to see finally that this dream was going to start to happen. And during this period of 3 years, I'd also worked with Jim Ramstad and Paul Wellstone and Dave Durenberger and trying to get federal legislation written. We worked on the S4 Children's Welfare Act and Governor Carlson's office in Washington. And about a month after we opened, an intern from Wellstone's office had said, you know, I heard that you had worked on this state legislation. Would you help us draft a federal bill? And so I got to draft the federal bill, and this last October I went out to Washington and testified on that. And it's gotten a lot of publicity. Been on the Today Show, and we were on nightly news, and 25 states and Canada have contacted us, and so it's just been it's a huge national problem also.
Yes.
And that's kind of the story.
Great. And you would have never imagined yourself in this position a few years ago, right?
Right. I just, I know that a lot of the people we were all grassroots, and a lot of us were on AFDC and used our food stamps to buy donuts for the meetings. And a lot of us survivors and had gone through hell with our children. And that's where all the fight came from. And back then we said, we're going to make this go nationwide. And it was really exciting to go to Washington, because one of the other women that I started this with, she was out in Washington, and we testified together. And when we saw each other, we were just like, we did it, we did it. We said we were going to make it happen, and it happened.
And it's really a good program for children. Can you tell me what it's like at the Safety Center when a family starts to come there? Maybe Mike can help out.
Well, the way that it works, most of our cases are court-ordered because of neglect or physical abuse, and they're court-ordered to have supervised visitation. So we at the Safety Center, our priority is to make it a safe environment. So we have security, and we have a metal detector, and we have an alarm on our back door, and we have procedures for kidnapping and every kind of situation. But also, we don't want to traumatize people by making it so safe that they can't feel comfortable. And so once they're in the center, the playrooms are set up, and activities are set up for the kids that are age appropriate. And we bring in puppet shows and clowns. We have face painting. We have a music therapist and an art therapist that come every so often and do some puppet therapy and music therapy. And the idea is that we can help these families. I think that families, a lot of times they grow up, and it isn't that they don't love their children, it's just that they don't have any skills, or that this is how they were parented, and so they go on to parent their children that way, and they don't have a frame of reference on what is good parenting. And so we do a lot of early childhood type of activities to build that relationship and make it a positive experience. A dad and a kid, a dad and his son could build a model together, or do ceramics or t-shirt painting, or a young child, if the parent is real controlling and doesn't want their child to get messy, we'll do messy activities. So like we'll do finger painting with pudding, and let the child know that, you know, it's okay to be messy, it's okay, and let the parent know that too. So let them let go of some of their, I think society in a lot of ways gives out this message that if your children are perfect, then that means you're a good parent. But kids aren't perfect. Kids are creative, kids are messy, kids act out, kids, 2-year-olds cry when they're tired, and that's normal, and that parent needs to realize that too. And you can teach parenting, but what's going to stick is with the hands-on.
Exactly.
I don't know if you want to add to that, Mike.
No, I mean, you did a great job explaining, but we do need activities with the kids, and it helps the kids work with the non-custodial parent, which they don't get an opportunity to, and they enjoy, they just have fun, they interact, they have fun, they can get messy, they can, they just have a good time, you know, and they spend, and it's a nice nice room, and they've got plenty of activities to do, and then just a nice 2 hours of quality time, and it's great. And I've noticed where a lot of the children have started bonding with their father or mother, non-custodial parent, and where they at first they were really they didn't know the parent. Now they've really built a neat bond. Good. And it's kind of through some of the activities that we do, and they're just it's a great program, and there's great activities, and
great.
Also, one of the things that when we were setting this up, and I had talked to some therapists about this, and that kids, when they are that they're going to love the parent regardless of whether they've been abused, and when they get into their teen years is when they start to really feel the rejection and the abuse, and they start to realize that this was wrong and they shouldn't have been treated that way. And a lot of kids become suicidal, they get into drugs, they get into crime, they start stealing, lighting fires, and that's when they really start to feel that stuff. Well, if we can build some positive memories for those kids, therapists have said that they've worked with suicidal victims, and they have to pull out a couple positive memories from their childhood with that parent that will carry them through that period of time in their life when they're feeling really suicidal. And so what we try to do is create those positive memories, irregardless of whether the parent can change. The most important thing is for the child and the parent to have a positive experience and have something that they can remember. Oh, I built a model with my dad. Oh, remember that puppet show, and remember how my mom patted me on the back or held my hand. So something.
Yeah, and even if the family's not married any longer, they're still the parent, you know, and that's a very important thing for the child's development, to have positive relationships with both parents all along the way. And even though there's sometimes competition between the husband and the wife after and during and after the divorce, your program sounds so wonderful, because it's not having, you know, the one parent take him to Disneyland and Valley Fair and all these wonderful things and spending lots of money for one day, and then the custodial parent has to compete or feels like they have to deal with that. These are really wonderful, developmentally appropriate activities for the children that can really build on positive relationships and role models. That sounds really wonderful.
And we try to deal with the whole family, so we provide custodial parent support groups so that they can talk. I think that the hardest thing is when you're going through a divorce and there has been some abuse involved, and it's been towards your children or towards yourself, that a lot of times it's really the system is cold, and and it's hard for a parent to know what to do or how to do it, or how to protect their kids, or what they can say to their kids without ruining their testimony, and so, and also they just need other people that are going through the same thing. So we Mike teaches a parenting and support group to our custodial parents, and then we offer also parenting classes to our non-custodial parents so that we can help the whole family. Wilder program in St. Paul provides support groups, therapeutic groups for our children during the week, so the kids in the program can actually go to groups where they're learning about sexual abuse and physical abuse and how to protect themselves and how to deal with the issues and how to get some of the experiences out through art and drawing and talking about it with other kids that have gone through the same things, and the whole idea is to heal the whole family so that eventually that child is, when the court says you no longer have supervised visitation,
They'll still be safe place.
They'll hopefully be a little bit safer, or they've healed some and they'll be a little bit stronger, and they'll understand that it wasn't their fault.
Great.
And they've built some good parenting skills throughout, with our parenting classes, and built a good relationship with their child. So when they do, we're working for them maybe to get unsupervised, maybe, or just we do exchanges also at the center, and where there's no contact between the parents, and works out nice. So we've had one person had supervised visitation. Now she gets her girl for 6 hours during this on Saturday, unsupervised. So I mean, we try to work, to a goal. We have a goal towards that goal, and it doesn't always work out that way, but it works. We build up positive relationships, and there's been babies that have come in there that didn't know their dad or their mom, the non-custodial parent, and by the time they worked it up where they call them mommy and daddy, and where they didn't have that before. They didn't know who this person was. Now they know it's mommy, and now they know it's daddy, and they just built a neat relationship, and it's something that they'll remember, and they'll have that bond, and because they're still their dad or they're still their mom,
right?
And they still love them. They love the child. The child loves them back. So
I've talked to a few people that have been through abuse in their childhood, and they've said that's the hardest thing, was to admit to this abuse, because then they have to give up that parent. It's like they won't have that parent anymore, and we don't want to do that. That the children need both parents, if at all possible. So I know the program is mostly run by volunteers. Do you want to tell me what it would be like for a volunteer, if anybody would be interested in working at the Children's Safety Center?
Well, yeah, I started, I met Kim I was a managing at a convenience store. I was going to tell a little bit about my story.
Sure.
And she came in quite a bit, and I got to know her, who she was, and I asked if I could volunteer, and she said great. So I got to come down for the grand opening, and it really empowered me. It was just the neatest thing to sit there and listen to some of the testimonies and stuff. And so my heart was just turned to help out. And so I volunteered for a year there, and it turned into, now I work for the Safety Center and volunteers coordinator, and it's just a neat experience for volunteers, for people interested in working with children and parents that need help to heal, to make a bond back together with each other, and it's just a rewarding experience. It's working with the kids is great, and when I first got in there, it was neat, how we built these relationships, have built up from almost nothing to where they call mommy and daddy, and they do different things, and it's just really neat. And if some people are interested in volunteering, we need volunteers. We're run a lot by volunteers, and we need volunteers, and it's just a neat, rewarding experience to work with children. It's fun. We do fun activities. We do painting T-shirts and caps and all kinds of neat things, and you can just get in there and interact with them if the parents would like. Otherwise, you just kind of sit back and observe and just have fun. It's just fun working with kids. It's just I enjoy it. So anybody that likes working with children, and likes working and helping to heal parents and helping to heal kids and build that relationship, it's a great program, and it's fun.
Yeah. And it's usually mostly on Saturdays?
Saturdays. Right now we have supervised visitation on Saturdays. We're trying to get them Friday nights and Sunday afternoons, but we need more volunteers. We've got families that are on a waiting list, but we can't use those families because we don't have enough volunteers because we only have so many on staff, and so we're run by volunteers. So we'd like to get more families in there, but we need volunteers like Friday nights for like 3-hour, 4-hour blocks, and Saturday afternoons and Saturday mornings, and then Sunday afternoons. And it's just a neat experience working with the parent and working with both sides actually. Custodial, get to meet the custodial mom and the non-custodial dad, or vice versa.
Okay.
And it's just a neat opportunity to work with kids and parents and people that are really hurting.
So they could call the Safety Center, and then do you have some kind of orientation or training for them, for the volunteers?
We have in-service training. We have speakers come in from Ramsey County and from different places, and we have volunteer meetings, in-service meetings, and we go through a whole orientation program and go through the building and give them the tour of the building and tell them what our rules are and different things. And it's just a great rewarding experience, and it's a lot of fun. We need a lot of male and female volunteers, so if we can get it's fun.
Yeah, I have a lot of students that are learning about child development careers, and we've had a lot of good positive experiences with being volunteers. So comes highly recommended.
That was another thing that Kim got me directed in that way. When I was managing the store, I wasn't real happy, but she told me to start taking child development classes, and so I enrolled and I got into it, and it was really just a neat experience. It's neat. There's not too many males out there that are interested in doing that, but it's just a real neat experience, and that's
it's real important.
It's real important, and that's how I got started, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, I really appreciate you coming today and talking with us, and thanks a lot.
The Children's Safety Center is a fine example of grassroots activism at work. Thank you, Kim Cardelli, Mike LaDue, and Kelly McKown. Thanks to all of you for joining us on All About Kids. Please tune in again.
This has been a presentation of Hennepin County Library in conjunction with the Twin Cities Metropolitan Library Service Agency.